Hey guys, welcome to the Synthetic Native Podcast. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Arthur Colle. He is a former Goldman Sachs software engineer and analyst who recently left Goldman to start his own cryptocurrency-related venture. We talk about whether cryptocurrency is just a big hype bubble, what are its practical applications, and then we break off into a couple tangents on topics like the ethics of capitalism and, well, you'll see. I get his name wrong right off the bat, but other than that, it was a really fun conversation. And without further ado, I give you Arthur Colle. Hi, welcome to the Synthetic Native Podcast. I'm here with Arthur Colle. Colle, excuse me. I think that it's best if I just take a sip of my beer here and you explain who you are.
Sure. So my name is Arthur Colle, as you mentioned. I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland. I studied computer science. I also took some math classes and finance classes. I graduated in, when did I graduate? I guess 2015. And then I went to work at Goldman Sachs's headquarters in New York City. So I've been basically working there for the last almost 3 years. I was 2 years and 7 months. Originally, I was working for the technology division in various trading-related technology roles, and then I eventually switched over to the trading side, actually as a trader, which I was doing for the last 8 months. And I recently left the firm to pursue cryptocurrency stuff pretty much full-time. And over the last 2 weeks, I was vacationing in Belize, so that was awesome.
Was that your only vacation the whole time?
No, I took a vacation to go to Florida more than a year ago. I was trying to make up with my ex, which was a disaster.
Oh no!
But no, so I generally vacations just consisted of taking some time off and working on side projects, but yeah, first legit fun international vacation for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, Belize is great. Florida's great. So let me make sure I understand this right. You were a software engineer, and then you went and became a trader at the same company.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you that's kind of interesting to me. What is that shift like?
So, yeah, a lot of people, there's a kind of a certain mystique to doing that. Since it's you get hired in one role and then you say, oh, actually, I want to do something different. I never really understood why that was. I mean, it's kind of just I always wanted to trade securities, and at a bank, that's kind of, it's a great company to be able to explore different types of roles. I enjoy coding. I don't know if I would say that I really like software engineering per se. I feel considering how to erect a big working system despite failure. I don't know if in the context of a big company, I really like software engineering. I like hacking on projects and just trying different things. But
well, hold on just a sec. I think we'll move on to the cryptocurrency stuff eventually, but I think you're touching on some interesting stuff. Do you really, you kind of don't would you say the, kind of dealing with the large, scale infrastructure type stuff that comes with software engineering at that level?
Yeah, I would say it's mostly that. And just I like touching on new technologies. I like learning languages. I like more of the theoretical stuff in computer science, and then I also the very hands-on, practical. Oh, this is the implementation of the algorithm. This is how it works. Actually being able to see the nuts and bolts of it. I just didn't really like being stuck on like one particular like technology stack, and then to have to like have all of my decision making be around maybe the shortcomings of a particular technology stack, as opposed to being more of a, oh, let's like, the thing with GS is that there's a lot of very proprietary technologies, but that's necessarily the case at any big software company. Like, you're going to develop a lot of software in the process of being a software company, and then like that becomes your proprietary like technology stack. I just felt like I wanted to try something new, and that I had pretty much gotten everything that I was going to get out of like a traditional software engineer role at the company. Like,
Right.
it's almost like a little bit selfish. Like, I kind of really wanted to learn their proprietary like programming stack, just because it was, it's the opportunity to learn something that not everyone gets to see. So once I was proficient in it, it felt like the right move was to explore something that, again, not a lot of people get to do, which is be like a trader at Goldman. So
Yeah. Well, so I think we can probably return to this because I do think it's interesting, and I think we could probably do like just talk about Goldman and like what it's like to work there and what it's like to be an engineer at that type of company for a long time. And I think we'll touch on it some more, but I want to go straight to just like what the people want, which is, how do you feel about crypto? Just give me your hot take.
I think that crypto is a nascent uh, field, basically. I think that there's a lot of hype associated with crypto, but really it's a pretty monumental technology, in the sense that, specifically, like, so a lot of my expertise was gained like around like the 2012 era, like Bitcoin. So it was like that initial jump from like, I guess, sub 100 to like the 1,000. I remember that was like the peak. It had reached like parity with gold, or like close to parity with gold, like 1242. Like, for some reason, that price is sticking in my head. I think that the ability to like transact with people without like trusting them is really fundamental shift. Right now, we have, a system that works pretty much for like all cases, but I think the ability to just like transact value like over the internet without needing like this, graph of uh, intermediaries that kind of need to be greased in order to like get money from like point A to point B, is a really big shift. And I think, I mean, there's all kinds of like hype, but fundamentally, and I don't want to say like blockchain is like this magic, silver bullet. Like, no, it's not. It's a pretty bad data structure unless you need like the guarantees that it provides. And those guarantees are, yeah, in a system where you're not really trusting like any of the counterparties, like, it provides some guarantees that you're gonna, asymptotically reach some kind of consensus. But that's it. Like, that's it. It's not magic. It's just that now that we have this new technology that enables like fundraising to happen much more simply than it was previously, I think that could, lead to a big boom in the number of companies that are just started up by like a few people, like in an apartment. Like, I think that that's any technology that makes barriers more able to be overcome than previously, like, is good. So I think that it's great technology. I think that there's a lot to be done in the space. I mean, I wouldn't have left, GS unless I thought that there was tremendous promise to the space. So I would say that's pretty much my thoughts on the field. And like, even like ICOs are a great development. Like, it's trivial to like raise huge amounts of money to like work on big ideas. Now the problem is the people. It's not the technology. It's not like the application of the technology. Yeah, if you give someone like $1 billion, and they don't have any reason to need $1 billion, then yeah, you're going to have a bad time. But the fact that that exists, the fact that people can do that for the first time without needing to go to banks, without needing to go to like venture capital firms, like, that's amazing. And it totally disrupts the venture capital like industry in and of itself.
I'll grant you that is definitely cool, and I had never thought about it so explicitly in those terms until you said it that way. I think, but I think that there's a lot of confusion amongst maybe just casual people and the general public that ICOs are offering some like special way to do things, right? You're talking about they're a really open way to get funding, and that's really cool. But they don't like these like dental coins and just random like garlic coin, whatever it may be. It doesn't actually like change how those industries work, like right off the bat, right?
No, of course not. But like that, there's nothing new about like that statement. There were these coins, like all these altcoins, like that was like a 2013 thing. Like having like what Anon coin and like Bytecoin instead of like Bitcoin. Like it's just like yeah, like obviously if you just like fork the source code of something and then like add a sticker with your name on it, there's no value add. Of course, I mean like, but that's something that was true 5 years ago. It's still true today. I would say that the big thing in the last year that begs mentioning is the fact that oh wow, people are actually using like cryptography in order to like raise money. I think that's the big interesting development, and I think that on top of that, just the fact that like people are creating like lots of new types of like financial instruments, like these like simple agreement for future tokens. That's like a new type of financial development, right? Like the whole idea that like you're gonna have like oh yeah, this is all just like in-app currency. Like that's like it's like a statement in bad faith. Like this is literally like all ICOs are equity fundraising, and they can call it whatever they want, but that's what it is. You're raising money, and the instrument behaves like equity. There's the expectation that you're going to get like a higher price in the future. Like you can have any ICO team in the world call it whatever they want, but this is like kind of a equity technology innovation. Specifically ICOs. I'm not talking about like smart contracts. I'm talking about specifically the development of like ICOs and like their uses.
Right. So it's like it's just distributed investment.
I think that yes, you could consider like cryptocurrencies as like a form of because like think about the old model. The old model was that okay, you build like very like complicated, convoluted like banking infrastructure. At some point, there is like the injection of like new capital into the system via like the Federal Reserve, and then there's like the traditional banking system. And then if you want to raise money, you go to one of these banks, and then obviously there's lots of different structures that can be agreed upon, but you either go to a bank or you go to a VC, and then they give you like actual cash. The fact that like you can cut out the intermediaries completely and then just immediately like it's like a bit like Kickstarter, but in the sense that you don't even need like the Kickstarter infrastructure. You literally just need the bare bones like Ethereum like network running, which I think is a huge development. It's a really and just that without even touching on any of the other interesting parts of like cryptocurrencies, like that's a huge. I think that's one of the biggest developments in the last 5 years, I would say.
Let me ask you a spicy and possibly stupid question. Actually, I'm going to ask you a lot of those. And this one is, so like you hear, I guess some of the more libertarian type of people say that the beauty of cryptocurrency is that it takes power from the Goldman Sachs, JP Morgans, et cetera, of the world. How much truth is there to that? How much are they the bad guys in the first place? How do you feel about that?
So, I mean, I had a great experience working in Goldman Sachs, truthfully. It taught me a lot about the world, how things work. That being said, I agree with that message completely. I think that it's great that we're in an era. I'll put it to you this way. It's great that we're living in an era where people can openly experiment with these types of systems without fear of any repercussions, right? Obviously, any kind of system that disrupts the previous way that the system was run, even 100 years ago, that would put you like put you at like striking distance with like the powers that be, right? And now, like pretty much, they can just be like, oh yeah, like crypto is like a competitive threat, and they can't like secretly come to your apartment and like kill you. they can say is, yeah, this is like a competitive threat.
Well,
So
probably not in America. We can say probably not in America. Um,
exactly.
probably some people are getting shot and killed in Russia or something.
Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah. I mean,
No, but you're right. You're right, though. It is cool that we've reached that point. Do you? This is a question that somebody I asked them. I was like, "Hey, I'm talking to a cryptocurrency guy. What do you want me to ask him?" And he was like, "Do you think there will be significantly more government regulation of the crypto sphere in the next 5 years? And what will that regulation look like?" And obviously, that just ties into what you were just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that governments are going to, I mean, it's obviously governments are going to try to regulate this stuff because it makes it very easy to get around paying what's owed in terms of taxes. But I think that it raises the very good question of if everyone is turned on to crypto systems and cryptocurrency specifically, and then suddenly people are just like, hey, I actually don't want my money going to these things, so I'm not going to pay. If everyone does that, you can't really put everyone in jail. And I think that it's another important part of the conversation because obviously, I frequently have conversations with my parents about this, and my father, kind of like older school guy, like believes that the only effective way to do something is like, okay, if you disagree with the law, then you should get the law changed. And like, while I agree with that in spirit, at a certain point, like I think it's appropriate to just like say, hey, this is like a totally bullshit system that we've like arrived at, and at a certain point, it just becomes so exhausting and excruciating to have to go through the existing systems and like the supposed uh, well structured way that has been thought of to like influence that system, like with going to Congress, getting laws passed officially. Now we can just say, oh, well, I'm going to use this alternative money system. Bye.
Yeah, and that so seems like the zeitgeist of our times now with just everything. I think everybody's frustrated with how hard it apparently is to change practically anything about our society. So in some way, cryptocurrency is really, really cool just because it is so clearly disruptive and nobody can really stop it,
Yeah. Well, I would say, yeah, people can stop it when they start to like just not maintain the networks. And like that's what's so elegant about it is the fact that it's like it's a I don't want to say democratic because like obviously you can only really influence the direction of cryptocurrency if you're like working on the code. But it seems like the fact that it's like optional, the fact that like you can actually choose whether or not you want to participate is really cool.
Well, even that is often democratic because oftentimes these are at least partially open source, right? Or are
Yeah,
at some point during their life cycle.
they're like the code is visible, but I would say that like if you try to like get onto like the Bitcoin like core development like team, so to speak, and actually like okay, I want to say it's very meritocratic. I think that's a better word than democratic because I think that after a while, if you fix a lot of bugs on the Bitcoin source code, you could there is a reasonable expectation that you would be like part of their like inner crew at some point. But again, it takes years of like hard work and actually like fixing problems.
Right. But how much more could you really expect? How much more democratic could it really get?
Yeah,
There's just structural things that prevent it from being more democratic than that. But I see. I take your point.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's fair. But no, so to hit back on the question that you had asked about what form will the regulation take place? I think at this point it makes sense to look at some of the more. I mean, I find like the Zcash protocol to be pretty interesting, especially because like I remember learning about zero knowledge proofs like back when I took crypto at the University of Maryland, and I was like, this is really interesting, but like I just never envisioned like that it would actually be practically applied. Um, and then to see that actually people are like putting it to work and like, and again, this is a protocol that I don't actually have like full understanding of how it works, so to speak. But if there actually is at some point like some kind of untraceable like currency, then like what are they gonna regulate? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
from a structural perspective, it's like okay, I mean, you can write the law, but I mean, like you can't actually like expect anything to come of that.
Is that what Zcash is? I'm not really familiar. I've heard of it.
It's basically like uses zero knowledge proofs, which is like how do you prove that a message is authentic without actually like revealing the message in question? So it's pretty interesting from just a cryptographic perspective. But I think that realistically, like the government is going to have to just implement its own
Crypto.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not. But again, like they don't need it. They don't need a crypto system because they want to be able to set monetary policy, which is like doesn't really work. I mean, it would be cool to have like some kind of mixed system, just as like an intellectual exercise. But like, what if you could have? But again, it all just kind of ends up failing, like in practice, because again, it just ends up requiring like centralization on the part of like it doesn't make sense to have a system where like there's a bunch of like network nodes and then suddenly you have like one entity that says, oh, actually we're going to like modify the cap today.
Right.
Doesn't really, yeah.
Well, so on that note, I mean, are there any like unanticipated or like unanticipated applications of cryptocurrency that you think haven't become clear to everyone yet that maybe you've thought about?
No, I mean, I think a lot of the applications have been well explored in the literature. I think that one that is very timely is using smart contracts to implement like secure voting systems, which I think obviously with the whole Russia meddling scandal, like would be very timely. And I think that, obviously it just makes sense to kind of like, in my opinion, I don't want to say it makes sense because I can't speak for anyone, but in my opinion, I feel like a lot of the financial applications, once those are like well solidified, it makes sense to go and explore some of the political use cases. Just because obviously, like democratic society, like pretty much works for the most amount of people, and so I think that it's important that it stays around. And to accomplish those aims, you pretty much need to have secure voting. But the problem is that the incentives aren't aligned to just openly work on like open voting systems when like no one's going to pay you to do that. So I think that some of those applications I think will be interesting to see once they've been built. But in terms of like interesting applications that no one's seeing, like no, we pretty much do see them. We see exactly that's what's going to come. The only problem is that like the NSA pretty much has like this like black budget, and who knows like how who knows like how much there's a group called like the Tailored Access Operations, and they do all the like super spooky offensive cyber warfare stuff, and like very curious like how deeply they're looking at some of these like truly open like systems and just trying to like mess around with them. Like there was an article released the other day about like the Tor and how it's like pretty much like fully funded by the US government, and like there were a lot of different like comments on like Hacker News saying like, oh well, this is like natural because like this is just the funding structure. And I think it's pretty like crazy when you think about like the one thing that like gives you like the one well supported, well like developed like tool that actually has engineers working on it could be like subverted in ways that like we don't even know yet. We wouldn't know for years. And I worry that a lot of these like huge ICO projects could have meddling of that same nature that we wouldn't know for many years.
They just have backdoors in them?
Yeah, basically like that's pretty much what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Now you're scaring me right now. I don't want to like. I feel like I'm about to hear your door get knocked down.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna get like taken away.
I always get super spooked like talking about TAO. I feel like those are like truly like the darkest wizards in the world.
No, I've never heard of this, and I'm like a pretty dark wizard myself, so that's pretty nuts. We really are reaching Joe Rogan level conspiracies here. This is great.
Hold on, someone's knocking. So yeah, I mean, crypto is great. I think more people need to have like the guts to just be like, oh, I actually think this is great, and I'm going to work on it. And it's
So
obvious
we need more engineers working on it, you think?
anyone working on it. I think engineers would be great, but even awareness is okay. I mean, I don't want to be like the dude who says, "Oh, even awareness is important," but really, even awareness is important.
Yeah.
I think it's important to like be willing to like question like long held assumptions about economic systems, about like wealth disparity. Like, dude, I'm like the hardest capitalist that you'll like ever find. But at the same time, like I like to consider myself like scientifically minded person. Like I think it's great to test things and to simulate things and to see, oh, well, this didn't work. Let's try this. Like, well, this didn't work. Oh, well, let's tweak the parameters a little bit. Like, I think openly examining our economic systems is critical. Like, and we're very lucky to be able to like look at these and with a critical eye. I think for the first time, basically forever.
So is cryptocurrency like a purely sort of capitalist thing, or is it? I mean, how when you say you're capitalist, are you interested in increasing just equity of people, like within capitalism? Do you think that capitalism is good at that?
No, I think it's not, but I
Better than
think that
any other system, or what?
it works. I mean, I consider myself like okay, does it make sense in 2018 to like call yourself an anarchist? I feel like I can't really like walk around the street and say that I'm an anarchist,
Mhm.
but I feel like yeah,
Are you like a
I,
classical anarchist? You're like a capitalist anarchist?
something like that.
Yeah.
I, I I'm not really someone who likes just like having just obviously labels have meaning, and I don't want to like I don't like the current system for a lot of reasons. I don't think that like I think that the most worrying thing about today's society is the accumulation of power of like entrenched interests, right? Like
Right.
whether banks, whether it's software companies, whether it's just rich people. Like I don't want to come across as sounding like a high school like pothead who's like just discovering like political systems for the first time. But really, it's kind of crazy that the tight coupling of economic systems and like uh, the struggle for natural resources, like in the Middle East, and like I I would say that I'm a capitalist in the sense that I like knowing that the work that I output has some measurable um, amount of like capital that I can derive from that, right? And then I can reuse that. Uh, but like traditional meaning of capitalism, like the owners of capital like should own the means of production. Like that doesn't really translate even like to today's society since everything's so digital. I feel like.
Yeah. It
Uh,
sounds like I've been thinking a lot about this. It seems like the terms are getting outdated at a certain point. Not that they're not still useful, but
yeah,
yeah,
like I believe that technology is a hugely democratizing force, and I think that people shouldn't be slaving their life away for a job that like helps their hierarchy of bosses like maybe get a little bit more money next year. I think that that system's completely broken. So I mean,
right.
uh, and a lot of people probably think that and call themselves capitalists. So um, I just personally like most micro statement I can make is like I like to work on things that I find intellectually stimulating, and I like to know that I can do that at my own pace and for purposes um, that I've decided are valid, as opposed to like just being like some foot soldier in someone else's like battle, right? Like if that makes sense.
Yeah. How often did you feel like you were a foot soldier in GS's battle?
Um, no, again, I feel like I really enjoyed aspects of working there. And I don't want to like denigrate like former employer at all. I just feel like it would be another big thing that I really like about crypto systems specifically, and this will directly answer your question, is imagine a world where everyone just optionally decides who they want to interact with in a given day. Like that's really cool. Like imagine if I don't want to say imagine if everyone could be their own boss, but imagine if there was this, beautiful system of like smart contracts and people just decide every day, like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And like our current system tells you like, oh no, you start at the bottom of a corporation and you work your way up through many years of hard work. And then, if you're the best, then you will shine and then you will get to decide what gets done, once you've been made the boss and then you decide the strategy. That's not really how things work. There's a very large chunk of the population that will always stay at the bottom of this pyramid, right? Or not pyramid. It's more like a graph, but
it's more like a what?
More like a graph, like in graph theory and computer science, you have like nodes and edges.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of nodes at the bottom.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's not really like a pyramid structure. It's much more like a graph structure where it's like any node has n number of neighbors, and then any of those neighbors has like another n number of neighbors. Like I'm saying, it's much more structureless. Like it's very easy to like think of a pyramid structure and like, oh, there's one guy at the top, and then there's like 1,000 people at the bottom. But really, like organizational structure is much more graph-like, right? Because
okay. But if you organize that graph by like I don't know, ascending economic power or, just money, whatever you want to call it, then it is a pyramid in the sense that there's levels, and as you go up, the levels contain less nodes. Right? So you can organize it like a pyramid. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. No, it's true. It's true.
Does crypto help with any of this? Does crypto, like, I guess you just suggested that it could help us kind of organize our society around these like contracts that we could utilize in order to basically all be, remote workers or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess you wouldn't have to, it would apply to anything, but the spirit of remote work now is this kind of idea of like, you work on things where you want, when you want. Obviously I think there's still going to be things you have to do in person, like being a surgeon or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking like nursing or something like that. At a certain point, like not everyone can be like remote workers, but I don't know. I think like one thing I would like to see people involved in the space do less is make like huge generalizations predicting what's going to happen. I think that people just need to start working. Yeah. People just have to like write some code that fails, and then they look at the code and be like, oh yeah, this can be fixed. And then they actually like, I think that needs to be done a lot more because like it's not religion. Like there's no new crypto religion. Like this is just new. Like I like to say that crypto is just new developer tooling. Like literally that's all it is. It's just a new library that you can use. And it's not a speculative investment. It's not meant for investment. Bitcoin isn't even a real thing. It's an experiment. We're trying this new system. So whenever people ask me, oh, should I buy Bitcoin right now? I want to slap them because no, they shouldn't. They shouldn't buy Bitcoin. They should read about Bitcoin. They should think about maybe, reading more about cryptography. But no, like anyone who asks, should they buy Bitcoin? The answer is no, they shouldn't.
They should. So I really appreciate your attitude of like, this isn't like, the future isn't just going to come and like present itself to us. We do, because even I'm a fairly technology oriented person. I work at a startup. I am enthusiastic about technology, but even I find myself just kind of like sitting back sometimes and kind of like waiting for the world to happen, waiting for all this cool shit to happen. And you're like, I think 100% on point when you say like none of this is just going to happen. People are going to build it. And, if everybody just kind of sits back and expects, oh, it's going to be like this, like we don't really actually know what it's going to be like.
Exactly. No, there's that scene, and you've seen The Social Network, right?
Yeah. Oh, I actually haven't. No.
You haven't seen The Social Network? Okay.
I know.
First thing you have to do. No, so there's a scene where
I'm going to watch Annihilation. So.
Okay.
I'll watch that one next. Wait, hold that sidebar. Did you watch Ex Machina?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, you got to watch Ex Machina, and then because that's actually kind of a heady. It's sort of more of a commentary on AI, which I think there's a lot of similar sort of themes here. But
Yeah, no, I think I was because when I was in school, I was going to do AI research, but then I didn't.
Is there an intersection between crypto and AI that you can see? Not really, right? I mean, distributed systems, I guess, somehow. But
Sure. I mean, there is there is actually is a very profound overlap. There's this idea of like having an agent where so imagine a system where a program, obviously there's like lots of like client libraries where I could create like a Bitcoin address on the fly, and then obviously I can like uh, when you create the Bitcoin address, like you have like a public key and a private key. So imagine a program that is running on like some droplet, like the DigitalOcean droplet. And what it does is it pings like Google Cloud, it pings AWS, it pings all these different like cloud services. And what it does is it rents out storage, and it gets paid for renting out storage. And then every day it checks to see, oh, where is like the cheapest that I could go get this storage. So it's basically like a self like running program that gets paid for providing storage, and then every day like tries to find the cheapest place that it could like actually get that storage from. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to think about like are you following what I'm saying? It's like
yeah. You're you're talking about data storage,
yeah. So
and people hit up your program looking for storage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It would be just like Dropbox or something. But the point of the story, it's not really a story. It's more just like
An idea. It's a notion.
yeah, it's like a notion that you would have a program that provides a service and gets paid in cryptocurrency, and then uses that cryptocurrency that it's accumulated to finance its own operations. And this lends itself immediately to like, oh, having the distributed autonomous organizations, like because effectively a corporation is just like the sum of all of the things that it pays for, right? so, there is definitely like a nexus between these two worlds of like AI and cryptocurrency in the sense that you can now have programs that transact value, which is very profound.
Mm. Well, in theory, you could now too with some sort of like banking APIs, no? But
Yeah,
the thing that blocks it is just the bureaucracy of how banks work.
exactly. But also the fact that I could just like an employee at a bank could basically like give you an artificial balance. And the thing that with this is that it's secure in the sense that the only new currency that ever appears in a system is the currency that comes about in the issuance of new blocks.
So let's talk about that. Actually, my friend gave me this as a softball question for you. He was like, "How do you feel about proof of work?" But I think it's a little bit. What do you think about it? What do you think of proof of work, proof of stake? Enlighten me.
Um, I mean, Bitcoin works.
It's 10 o'clock.
Bitcoin works.
was that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, what? I mean, proof of work works. It's like
No. I was saying I heard it's 10 o'clock. I think it was like your alarm or something.
Oh yeah,
Or it was perhaps an AI. I'm not sure.
It was my AI that I've been writing.
AKA Google Home.
It's just the MacBook. I find it useful to have like every 15 minutes it tells me what time it is because then I like am oriented a little bit.
You're not just wasting all your time.
Yeah, exactly. Just most of it. No, proof of work I think is a viable. I don't know. I mean,
Is it as wasteful as it? You know, the meme is that we're using more power than whole countries to mine Bitcoin, and as far as I know, that's true.
Yeah,
it's
true.
extremely wasteful, right?
Yeah, I mean it's so
Wasteful in a sense, other than it is driving this sort of revolution that we're talking about, but it's probably unsustainable.
yeah. I think that it's good that people are exploring like more energy efficient ways of accomplishing the same end goal. But I think what we're going to find is, well, I mean, so there, I haven't really been following like these guys' progress, but there's a few like random groupings of developers working on like more energy efficient systems, like there's the hash graph dude, and then there's a few like wintergreen coin or something. I don't know. People are working on it. I don't really. It's kind of like if we look back on 1,000 years and then we had like this extraction of oil, and it was like bad for a time, and then we really fucked things up, and then we managed to get back on a good course, and like now you have like this floating like off like the Irish project of like this floating offshore wind farm, and like it's at 65% capacity, and they thought like even right like what I'm saying is like I think we'll look back and like we might be able to like avert the energy use of Bitcoin before it becomes like a big issue.
Yeah.
Of course, objectively speaking, yes, it's using a lot of electricity.
I think you just have a narrow view. If you only view like, okay, in this 5-minute window, Bitcoin is moving around a bunch of bits and wasting a bunch of energy. If that's all that you see, and you like don't understand the meta conversation about what it's doing to move to more cryptocurrency based systems, and what that could mean, like oil and fossil fuels have been horrible for the environment. Let's assume that is true. But if they lead to all the things that they have led to, all the advances in, reduction of poverty and the advanced technological systems, and then if that's what Bitcoin, for example, could eventually be when we look back on it, and that's what, in some sense ushers in society, what are we on, 3.0, then it'll be worth it.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at. Yeah, exactly.
It's worth it if it shifts the meta conversation and then we move forward. Okay. Do you know what the Telegram ICO is?
Yeah. Oh
okay.
My God.
Somebody asked me to ask you about that. So I don't know anything about it. So if you could sum it up too, that'd be cool, but no big deal.
Dude, raised $1 billion for fucking nothing. I mean, that, when I was talking earlier about ICOs and how like it's cool that this exists.
Yeah.
So I was literally thinking of exactly the Telegram ICO. Now, do I actually think that it's reasonable that we're giving like a messaging app $1 billion to explore something that is like, dude, like, oh my God, it makes me so mad.
Is it just literally like a new Slack or something?
Yeah. So Telegram, no, they've been around for a while. I'm not saying like the team is a bunch of idiots. I'm saying that what they're trying, like, I kind of think it's a gag. I think that they're gonna come to us in like a month and be like, just kidding, you guys are all idiots. You gave me $1 billion for nothing.
They almost deserve it in a way. Like if people are like in a way that dumb, it's like, just take the money.
Even beyond dumb though, it's more just like there's no viable places to put your cash. So you could put it at like a very toppy stock market, or you could put it in like crypto. I mean, like the yield on a mortgage bond, like is like, obviously it depends on the type of bond and like specifically, like I was doing structuring, so there's lots of different types of bonds. But dude, if you get 3% on your bond, like boom, you just like made a lot of money. Because obviously like you buy bonds in like tens of millions of dollars. But like you're not going to get 50% return on anything except for crypto. So like people are super hungry for that yield.
Yeah. Is that yield coming at the cost of anything in particular, or this money isn't coming from nowhere, right? So this is clearly a bubble to some extent.
No, so it's like if you were part of the crowd that got like 100 lots of Bitcoin and were moving them around when they were worth like $5, and now someone's buying like one Bitcoin for $10,000. Yeah, obviously the returns of the first dude is going to be on the back of the second guy coming in. But that's just like how trading works. Like I wouldn't look too deeply into that. Like that's just like how market structure happens. That's why it's so good that ICOs exist, because there shouldn't be this big gap between the first guy and the second guy that I was mentioning. And that all will become much more efficient with this highly democratic funding process. Yes.
Okay, so let's shift it to like, what are you? Is there anything that you're worried about in technology? Like, are you worried about? I shouldn't say technology, just society, but that is we're so fueled by technology that it almost feels one and the same. Are you afraid of? And by the way, this isn't necessarily about cryptocurrency, but I just want to pick your brain. Are you afraid of um, a shortage of, for example, jobs? Like, how do you feel about the job as a means of supporting an individual?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a very good question. It's cool that you're taking it in this direction. I th- I think it's I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of barbaric. Like I just hate the idea that like you're trading time for like money, and like I just think that
I love to hear a self-proclaimed capitalist say that, though. It's amazing.
I
By the way, I'm not like some crazy like lefty Marxist person either. It's amazing how diverse people, like how nuanced people's viewpoints can be. Because on the face of it, like nobody would expect you to say that, but it's absolutely true. Like you can be somebody who's passionate about the fact that capitalism kind of gave us the best results so far in human history, but at the same time, like we all would rather not be trading our time away for the ability to eat, right?
yeah, no, and it's exactly I guess that is literally hypocritical, right? I mean, like there's no way around that. I'm being a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying I like
Well, I don't
it,
think you're being a
but
hypocrite. I think you're saying like, can we develop technology that reduces that as much as possible,
yeah,
or
yeah,
at
and
least
I
makes
think
it so the time we're spending is we enjoy it more, whatever, optimize it somehow.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. What I worry about is it seems like this model is going to break down at some point. Like it's so funny that like you have this like for example one example like ride sharing, how ride sharing is going to get immediately displaced even though it like just came out, how it's going to be displaced by self-driving cars. Like that velocity of change is crazy, dude. Like I literally remember taking Uber for the first time, and we're already like,
Me
oh
too.
yeah,
I was in Dallas. I remember.
really,
Yeah,
South by South.
I was at UT Dallas. And yeah, I thought it was weird at the time, and yeah, it's about to change. But do you think that self-driving cars are kind of like, I know that a couple years ago, Elon Musk, for example, was like they're going to be here in a couple years, and I'm not saying they're not going to be here. I think that the timeline is longer than people thought. Paradoxically,
Yeah, of course. But when you're like on the hunt for funding, you have to lie.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I would love to hear your hot take on this, mostly because I think that I'll agree with you, and this is just masturbation for me. But um, what is your take on people who see, for example, Elon Musk, Tesla, Falcon Heavy launch, sending the Tesla into space, and their reaction is, "Oh, I can't believe we're letting the corporations take over space," or you know, whatever the hot take against rich people is. By the way, I have no special love for rich people, but I just feel like if you can't look at such a grand accomplishment and feel like some sort of pride, I don't know. It just triggers me.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, like, I've always been like my father's a scientist. Like I've always grown up in a very like pro science, like not even so much like technology specifically. That was kind of like what I just found interesting. But like science, engineering, like oh, like if we all work hard and try to build like interesting stuff together, we can like do huge feats. Like I've always like had like a big respect for that, and it's been part of my like what I consider to be my own like personal culture. Um, and yeah, no, corporations are literally just useful like social structures that help us align incentives. And again, cryptocurrencies, the same thing. It's just another little structure that we've developed along the way using like these really fancy calculators that we have now to basically get done. That's all it is. That's all it fucking is. And like, yeah, I would say that the one thing that worries me, just to revisit that question a bit,
Yeah.
is people wasting time.
Yeah.
And not even their own time, just time in general. Like when someone puts a shit post on the internet and then like maybe 100,000 people read that, you've wasted countless like human like human years, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and whether it's a job, whether it's like just putting shit content on the internet, like these things really add up. And like I just think that people, because now like for me, like me right now, I have like extremely comfortable life. It's amazing, and I just like really worry that because it's so easy to like have a really comfortable life, that people aren't asking themselves the hard questions anymore.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, wow, this guy doesn't realize, all the hard things that people are still going through. This is your typical, 20 something white male technology worker. How could he say this? Shit is not easy for everyone. Um, what do you have to say about that?
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro. I guess I just go I go between
I mean, they're right. I mean, I can only speak for myself, and that's why
yeah.
everything I say has a lot of caveats. And I say like, oh, I'm probably wrong, but no, pretty much I'm right about a few things, and I think like I'll be wrong about a lot of things probably going forward. But this is my viewpoint. I think that a lot of people are fucking totally wasting their time. I think that like,
By the way, I want to caveat by saying I absolutely agree with you. I think I already said that, but I just want to re-say it.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. And like, yeah, no, I mean, I've been very fortunate. I mean, there's not a lot of people that would leave GS, and I just kind of did it almost on a whim to work on something that I find interesting. Yeah, I'm very lucky, and I just think that what I'm saying is the most like nuanced portrayal of my own opinions that I could, put forth.
You said two things though that I think are really important. One, you said, I think it's important to realize that you wasting time, like you being privileged or doing well for yourself, whatever. I don't know what other labels you could possibly put on it, but that doesn't take away from the fact that people are still wasting a fuck ton of time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But more importantly, you followed it up with this and you said, I'm probably wrong about a lot of things. And that's like something that's so hugely missing, I feel like, in our society now, and like the sort of outrage culture on every end of every spectrum, and that is kind of fed in by the social media structures, is that we almost don't have room to be wrong in a way, I feel like sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like one thing that my father always told me a lot growing up was, if you don't know something, be willing to say, I don't know. But then on the other, like on the flip side of that, but I think that one should feel comfortable like exploring something, even if they like don't know it, but based on like their own collection of experiences, they might want to just, I don't want to say make an educated guess, but just kind of like give what they think might be correct. Obviously, like something is wrong or something is correct. Like it's binary. But at the same point in time, like more open-ended discussion of things, like I think is something that's very much missing. Like people just like go to their job, go back home, go like watch TV, like play some video games, like like there's I feel like there's a lot of like things like I personally don't have like a lot of like just purely intellectual debate. Like it's always just running around from one thing to the next. Like there's that element of just like curiosity that I feel like is super missing. That I would yeah, another thing to like answer the previous question of like what scares me. I feel like the lack of curiosity kind of scares me. The lack of like being willing to say, "Oh, this sucks. Let's make this better."
That's what's so inspiring. I know it's so corny in a way because Elon Musk is just this icon, and it's so obvious, but I feel like it can't be said enough why Elon is important is because he has in such a visible way kind of challenged people to dream bigger. And I don't know, maybe it's just like the ironic millennial in me. I can't say things like that without, adding caveats of like, I know it sounds corny, but it really is so important.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is so important. So there was one other thing I wanted to ask you, but I can't remember. This was a great conversation, though. On that note, I guess, what do you have any simple advice for people living their lives that has made your life better, that you feel like would make their life better?
Just don't compromise. Just like, just
You're like, let me pull out the bag of cliches and just. That's good though. When do you like you don't compromise in your day-to-day life? You didn't compromise when you were working at GS?
dude, I compromised a little bit sometimes. No, I didn't compromise. That's literally exactly what I wanted to do at that point in time in my life. Like, it was my dream to like go work on Wall Street. Like, dude, when I graduated high school, I took a photo of myself in front of the 200 West at GS, and I said, eventually I'll work here one day. And then 7 years later, I was working there. And
Hell yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I got to do exactly what I wanted to do, and that's why I say I'm very fortunate. I mean, like, literally, I would say there's probably two handfuls of people in the world that can say something along those lines. But I think that like hard work, like, no, not compromising. Like, if your parents are arguing with you one day, just like be willing to just be wrong. Like, take a risk, be wrong, and keep doing what you're doing, right? Obviously, but also there needs to be like that only works if you have like a very high level of self-analysis. Like, if you're able to like lie to yourself for years on end, then yeah, like, there's challenges because it's like your computer's fucked up and you're trying to like, do work with it. Like, it doesn't really work.
Well,
but no,
do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, who's that?
He's just he's a guy who started a wine TV show for his family's liquor business, and then he started a digital media firm, but now he's basically a social media star, self-help, motivational guy. And but he does say one thing that he says a lot, and I feel like it's really important, is just having a bias for doing. It's okay if you fuck up, just keep doing shit.
Yeah.
I feel like that ties in with what you said. You have to like take risks and just do things.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, and also just like be willing to have like everyone says it's better to like have this depth and breadth, but I would say that having breadth is awesome because then you see the connections between things that other people will 100% miss. It's very easy to do one thing and then do that for the next 35 years of your life. Yeah. It's pretty hard to consistently switch and to do the next thing and to be interested, to be curious enough to like want to try new things. Like, it just and there's no mold. That's another thing. Just like there's no mold. Just at any given moment, just do what you think is the most. I mean, my dad told me this, and I was like so annoyed because it's so generic sounding. But at any given moment, just do what you want to do.
Yeah, it's so true. As I've gotten a little bit older, I'm not like a kid anymore. I thought like all these fucking corny things that, you kind of grew up like laughing at or making fun of, like they're absolutely all fucking true. It's crazy.
So funny. Like just stuff that you get frustrated at like younger. It's just now it's like, oh, damn, it literally is correct.
God damn it. The Magic School Bus was all correct. Well, thank you so much, Arthur, man. Do you want people to follow you on social media? Do you have social media? How can people keep up with you?
I have a Facebook. I have a tweet. I have a GitHub. Like, if people want to like send me an email, like I have my email is like hello@arthurcolle.com. I have a blog. I still have a blog. I'm cool.
Okay, I'm putting all these in the link. I'm putting all these in the show notes underneath, so people that are interested, hit it up.
And like any advice, like career advice, coding advice, like if you think anything I said here was like total bullshit, like audience, like just call me out on it. Like I'm always up for a vigorous intellectual debate.
Arthur is willing to be challenged. Challenge his beliefs. Thank you so much for coming on again, Arthur. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks so much for checking out that podcast. If you thought what we said was smart or stupid or crazy, or if you just have a different opinion on the things that we talked about, if we enlightened you at all, hit us up on Twitter at Synthetic Native or any of the other social media platforms. The information for all that should be in the description. And yeah, thanks again for checking out the Synthetic Native podcast.